The stars outside the window of the science ship Hope Seeker looked peaceful, but inside alarms were flashing red. Dr. Elias Grant, a quiet human biologist, gripped the edge of his seat as the ship shook violently. The navigation system had failed. Something had pulled them off course, and now they were crashing. The last thing Elias remembered before everything went black was a bright flash and the sound of metal tearing apart. When Elias opened his eyes, he was lying on soft, moss-like ground. The sky above him was purple, with two suns shining through thin clouds. He tried to sit up, wincing as pain shot through his arm. His suit was damaged, and blood stained the fabric around his shoulder. Around him were broken parts of the ship, but there was no sign of the crew. He was alone. Elias forced himself to stand. He picked up his scanner and began checking the area. The air was breathable. The plants were unknown but beautiful, with glowing blue vines and trees shaped like twisting spires. As he took a step forward, he heard a loud sound, a low hum like energy gathering. Before he could react, a tall figure dropped from above, landing in front of him with incredible speed. The figure was a woman, but not human. She was nearly 7 feet tall, wearing silver and black armor. Her skin had a smooth purple tone, and her eyes were bright gold. A sharp crest of bone ran from her forehead to the back of her head like a crown. She held a long spear that shimmered with energy. Her expression was unreadable. Elias raised his hand slowly. "I'm not here to fight," he said calmly. The alien woman tilted her head, as if studying him. Then she spoke in a deep voice. Her words translated through his suit's language. "Chip, you are weak. Your kind does not belong here." "I didn't choose to crash here," Elias replied. "But I mean no harm." She stepped closer. "You're lucky I don't destroy you now." Elias met her gaze. "If you wanted to, I'd already be gone, so maybe... You're curious?" She narrowed her eyes. "I'm Dr. Elias Grant. I study life, plants, animals, ecosystems. Who are you?" There was a pause, then she answered. "I am Commander Thalvera of the Virilan High Guard. You are my prisoner." Before Elias could say more, 2 more armored Virelans appeared. Together they surrounded him and placed glowing cuffs on his wrists. He didn't resist. They led him away from the crash site and into the forest. After a long walk, they reached a fortress made of black stone and shining crystal. It stood tall on a hill, overlooking rivers and strange floating mountains in the distance. Inside, the halls were quiet and full of alien symbols. Thalvera brought him to a room, not a prison cell, but not exactly welcoming either. There was a bed, a table, and walls covered in moving patterns. Plants grew in pots around the room, many of them glowing faintly. "You will stay here until the council decides your fate," Thalvera said. Elias sat on the edge of the bed, breathing slowly. "Do they always judge strangers before speaking to them?" Thalvera crossed her arms. "Our world is built on strength. Weakness brings destruction." Elias looked at one of the plants. It had a withered leaf. He gently touched it. "Sometimes, caring for the weak brings something better." She turned and left without a word. Days passed. Thalvera visited often, bringing food and asking questions. At first, her tone was cold and strict. She asked about Earth, about human weapons, about why he came. Elias always answered truthfully, never raising his voice. He told her Earth was full of different people, many of them peaceful. He explained that his mission was to study plant life for medicine, not war. She didn't seem impressed. One day she asked, "Why did you not resist capture?" Elias smiled. "Because I wanted to learn, and I'm still alive, aren't I?" That made her pause. Elias began tending to the plants in his room. He trimmed the withered leaves, adjusted light levels, and even mixed water with local minerals to help them grow. The plants responded. Slowly, they became brighter, healthier. Thalvera noticed. "You waste time with these," she said. "They're alive," Elias replied. "Helping them helps me." "You speak like weakness is something to protect." He looked up at her. "Maybe it is." She stared at him for a long time, her expression unreadable. One night, Talavera sat alone on a high balcony. Below her, the city lights flickered. In her hand was a small recording device. She played Elias's voice again. Humans are weak alone, but together, we become something else, something stronger, not through fear, but through care. She looked at the stars. Virelans had ruled by power for centuries, but now, one quiet human had survived a crash, faced warriors, and still smiled with kindness. She whispered to the wind, "Your weakness is beautiful, human." And for the first time in many years, she felt uncertain about what strength really meant. Elias Grant woke up early the next morning. The two suns of Virelia cast soft orange light through the crystal window of his room. The alien plants he had cared for were glowing faintly, their colors brighter than before. He smiled and touched one of the leaves gently. This room was not a true prison. It had no locked doors, no chains, but it was still a cage. He was being watched, always. There were guards outside the hall, and his movements were limited to only a few rooms. Still, Elias was not afraid. He had survived a crash. He had met an alien warrior woman who could have killed him but didn't, and now he was alive inside a fortress of a powerful race. That was enough to keep him curious. Talavera entered the room with her usual strong steps. She was wearing her silver armor, again her long weapon strapped to her back. She looked serious, but her eyes flicked to the plants for a brief moment. "They have grown," she said. Elias nodded. "They're responding well to water mixed with ground minerals. I think they missed the attention." "Plants do not feel," she replied. "Maybe not like you or me," Elias said. "But they change, they react. That's a kind of feeling too." Talavera did not answer. She walked closer to the garden wall and looked at the vines he had tied gently with string. They were climbing higher now, reaching toward the light. "You could have used your time trying to escape," she said. Elias shook his head. "There's no point. I don't want to run. I want to learn. Even if it ends badly for you. Even then." She stared at him, then turned away. "The council has decided. You will take part in the trial of the mind." Elias blinked. "Trial? It is our way to test a prisoner's purpose, mind, instinct, emotion. If you pass, they may listen to you. If you fail, your presence here will end." Elias stood slowly. "When does it start?" "Tomorrow morning." That evening, Elias walked quietly in the small garden room beside his quarters. The Virelans had strange and beautiful plants. Some had petals like glass. Others shimmered when touched by wind. He sat by a glowing tree with round purple fruits and looked up at the twin moons. He thought about Earth. He missed its blue sky, its green forests. He missed coffee. But most of all, he missed people, the way humans smiled, helped each other, even argued. Here, everything was strong and silent. Walls were thick, voices were few, feelings were hidden. Talavera came into the garden. She didn't speak right away. She stood beside him, her arms crossed. "You do not sleep?" "Not tonight," Elias said softly. "Too much on my mind." She nodded once. Then she said something unexpected. "When I was a child, I failed my first test." Elias looked at her, surprised. "I showed fear," she said, staring at the moons. "They called me weak. I trained harder. I became stronger. I never failed again." "And yet," Elias said, "you spared me." She didn't answer, but her silence spoke volumes. The next morning, Elias was taken to the Hall of Trials. It was a wide, circular chamber made of black stone and silver lights. In the center stood 3 glowing platforms. Around them sat the council, 10 Virelan elders in robes of deep blue and gold. Their faces were firm, watching closely. Talavera stood to the side, silent and still. She didn't smile, but her eyes followed Elias as he stepped onto the first platform. A voice echoed through the room. Phase 1, Mind. A holographic puzzle appeared in front of Elias. Symbols rotated in the air, unknown shapes and strange numbers. He studied them, calm and focused. He thought like a scientist. He didn't rush. He used patterns, logic, and small guesses. Minutes passed. Then, click, the symbols aligned. The puzzle vanished. A whisper moved through the council. Phase 1. Passed. Phase 2. Instinct. The room darkened. Suddenly, the floor dropped beneath him and Elias was in a forest simulation. Alien beasts leapt from the trees. He had no weapons, but Elias didn't run. He ducked, crawled, climbed. He used branches and vines to create traps. He didn't fight with strength. He used his brain. He guided one beast into a pit. Another got caught in vines. The last one backed off when Elias held up a mirror-like piece of metal reflecting its own image. The trial ended. Phase 2. Passed. Phase 3. Emotion. This time he stood in a burning building. A simulated child, a small Virelin, was crying. On the other side of the room was a device marked Escape. Smoke filled the air. Elias didn't hesitate. He ran to the child, picked her up, and shielded her with his body. He coughed, eyes tearing up, but kept going. He reached the exit, with the child in his arms. As the fire vanished and the lights returned, the council was silent. Then the elder leader stood. You chose another's life over your own. Why? Elias, tired and sweating, said only this. Because that's what we do. It's not weakness. It's what makes us human. Later, back in his room, Elias sat by the garden wall. The plants had grown even more. One of the glowing flowers bloomed just as Thalvera entered. The council was impressed. She said. Elias looked at her. Did I pass? Yes. He nodded slowly. She stepped closer. Her voice was quiet now, almost gentle. You do things differently. You protect life, even when it costs you. It's not about being strong, Elias said. It's about caring. That's what holds us together. Thalvera looked at the garden. The soft lights reflected in her golden eyes. Your weakness, she whispered again, almost to herself, is beautiful. And this time she didn't turn away. Elias sat quietly in the garden room. The trial was over, but the memory of it stayed fresh in his mind. Each challenge, each decision. He had passed, but he did not feel like a hero. He felt like a bridge, stretched between two worlds. The soft wind in the garden moved the glowing leaves. The alien plants he had cared for now seemed brighter than ever, as if they responded to his thoughts. Suddenly the door opened. Commander Thalvera stepped in. She wore no helmet today. Her face, strong and proud, was softer than usual. She did not speak at first. Instead, she watched him as he touched the petals of a blue flower. You passed the trial, she said. The council accepted your answers. They will allow you to remain, for now. Elias looked up. I didn't do it for permission. I did it to show you who we are. Thalvera walked closer. You surprised them. You surprised me. I'm just being myself. She looked at the plants, then back at him. Many Virelins believe emotion is a weakness. But what you showed today, it made them think. Good, Elias said with a gentle smile. Thinking is the start of understanding. Later that day, Elias was invited to the Grand Hall of Thought, a large dome-shaped room filled with silver lights and glowing maps of stars. This was where Virelin leaders shared ideas, made plans, and studied the universe. He walked beside. Thalvera, as warriors and scholars, watched him with interest. Why bring me here? He asked. You said you came to learn, she replied. Then learn. At the center of the room stood a giant 3D star chart. Hundreds of worlds blinked in light. A tall scholar named Master Karel stepped forward, his voice calm but curious. You are human, he said. Your kind is not strong like ours, but you survived. How? Elias looked around the room. All eyes were on him. Humans survive. he said slowly. Because we adapt. We don't always win with strength. Sometimes we win with ideas or hope, or simply helping one another. Hope? Carell asked. That is not a strategy. Elias smiled. It is when everything else fails. A few of the scholars laughed quietly, not mocking, just surprised. Talavera stepped forward. This human has shown that strength can take many forms. Our way is not the only way. The room fell silent. That moment marked something new. A small beginning. Over the next few days, Elias was allowed to move more freely. He studied the Viralan records, learned about their history, their victories, and their losses. He found something strange. Long ago, Viralans used to share stories, emotions, even music. But after centuries of war, those things faded. They had become hard, always ready to fight. Elias wanted to understand why. One evening, he and Talavera sat under a tall tree with silver leaves. No guards, no pressure, just the two of them. Why did your people stop feeling? He asked. Talavera was quiet for a while. There was a great war. We almost lost our world. Emotions were blamed. They made warriors hesitate, so we trained ourselves to ignore them. But that's like cutting off your own heart, Elias said. It saved us. And yet here we are, he said softly. Maybe it's time to feel again. She looked at him. You speak as if feeling is always good. No, he said. Feelings can hurt, but they can also heal. They connect us, they help us grow. She stared into the distance. Your people are not what I expected, and you're not what I feared, Elias said. She blinked, surprised by his honesty. One day, while exploring an ancient hall deep beneath the fortress, Elias discovered something unusual. An old chamber with carvings on the wall. The symbols showed Virelans standing side by side with smaller beings, humans. He called for Talavera. This is old, she said, touching the stone. Older than most of our history books. These figures, Elias said, they look human. They cannot be. Then why are they here? Together they found a hidden panel behind the carvings. Inside was a glowing cube. When activated, it played a message in an old voice. We remember the ones who felt. They came from far away. They taught us balance, strength, and kindness, and we lost them, and with them we lost part of ourselves. Talavera stepped back, stunned. It's true, Elias whispered. You once had allies who showed emotion. Maybe humans and Virelans were friends long ago. Talavera looked shaken. If that is true, then we lost more than we knew. Elias turned to her. Maybe it's time to remember. That night, Talavera stood on the balcony of her chamber, looking out at the stars. Her heart felt heavy. Everything she had believed, everything she had trained for, it was changing. Behind her, she heard footsteps. You look troubled, Elias said gently. I feel uncertain. That's not weakness, he said. It's growth. She turned to him. Her voice was softer now. Your words. They stay in my mind. I hear them even when you're not speaking. Elias stepped closer. Because they speak to something already inside you. She nodded slowly. Maybe. I don't know. Then let's find out together. From that moment on, something changed between them. Talavera no longer saw Elias as just a visitor or a test subject or a soft human. She saw him as something more. Not a warrior, not a threat, but a teacher, a reflection, a spark of something forgotten, and Elias, for the first time since crashing on Virelia, no longer felt alone. They had started not just a conversation, but a journey, together. The wind was soft over the towers of Virelia as the sun set, painting the sky in colors of gold and violet. Elias stood at the edge of the garden, carefully trimming a thick blue vine that had begun to climb the walls. He was humming a simple earth tune, an old song his mother used to sing. Behind him, Talavera watched in silence. She had been doing this more often lately, coming without words, standing still and just observing. The strong Virellan warrior who once saw him as a weak creature now stood beside him quietly, like someone trying to understand something new. Elias turned and smiled. "You keep visiting me? Starting to enjoy gardening?" Talavera shook her head slowly. "I don't understand it, but I am curious." "Curiosity is a good thing," Elias replied. "It means you're growing." She stepped closer, picking up a fallen leaf. "You humans. You care for such small things. These plants, your songs, even memories. You treasure feelings as if they are weapons." Elias nodded. "They are. Not weapons to hurt, but tools to build." Talavera raised an eyebrow. "On Virelia, we are trained to ignore feelings, to remain calm, focused, powerful. And yet you stood beside me when I saved the child during the trial," Elias said. "You felt something then." Her voice was quieter now. "I did." That evening, they walked through the Grand Library. Elias had been granted access to more ancient records, especially after discovering the carvings of early human Virellan connections. Scrolls and digital crystals filled the shelves, each one holding a story from thousands of years ago. Talavera showed him a record called The Flame of Unity, a forgotten legend from the days before war changed their people. It spoke of a time when warriors and thinkers shared power, when softness was not shamed, when allies from another world stood at their side. "They say emotions made us weak in battle," she explained, "but this story speaks of strength through balance." Elias looked at her. "Maybe that's why I'm here. Not to challenge your strength, but to remind you of the strength you forgot." Talavera didn't answer, but something in her eyes changed. Her curiosity was no longer simple, it was personal. The next morning she invited Elias to the training arena. "I want to understand how you fight," she said. Elias laughed. "I don't fight." "Then show me how you survive." Elias agreed, and the two faced each other in the open space. Warriors watched from the sidelines, some curious, some mocking. Talavera raised a wooden staff. "Come at me." Elias held a shorter stick, took a deep breath and waited. He didn't move first. He watched her steps, her breathing, her eyes. When she struck, he dodged lightly. She struck again. He ducked and rolled, never attacking, only moving, flowing, like water. "What are you doing?" she asked, surprised. "Not fighting," Elias said. "Just staying alive." Talavera moved faster now, trying to pin him, but Elias kept finding paths to slip away. His motions were not strong, but clever, flexible, calm. Finally she stopped. "You never hit me once." "I didn't need to," he said. "I'm still standing. That's a win for me." Some of the warriors began murmuring. A few nodded in quiet respect. Not everyone could survive against Talavera without striking back. She stared at him, breathing lightly. "You truly are different." Later they sat under the twin moons, sharing a meal of fruits and bread. It was quiet, peaceful. Talavera asked, "Do all humans think like you?" Elias shook his head. "No. We're all different. Some are brave, some are afraid, some love peace. Others choose war. But most of us, we try. We fall and get up. Again and again." "You said you lost your family," she said gently. "Yes, years ago. A disease. It took my mother first, then my brother. I kept working to survive, but sometimes I wonder what it was all for. And now? Maybe it was to bring me here, to remind someone like you that feelings are not weakness." She was quiet again. Then softly she said, "My sister died in battle. I never cried for her. I trained harder instead." Elias nodded. "That was your way to cope, but it's okay to miss her. That's not weakness either." Talavera looked at the stars. "I don't know how to feel." "You already do," he said. "You just need to stop hiding it." The next day, something unexpected happened. The outer sensors of the Virilan capital detected a small ship entering orbit. Unknown technology but human signal. Elias was called to the council. "This ship may belong to your kind," said Master Carell. "We will prepare to intercept." Elias stepped forward. "Let me try first. I can speak with them. If they're human, they might be peaceful." The council hesitated. Then Talvera stepped forward. "I will go with him." The elder nodded slowly. "Then so be it." Hours later, aboard a Virelan scout ship, Elias and Talvera flew toward the human signal. The ship was small, damaged, and barely stable. A transmission came through, distorted, but clear enough. "This is Captain Naomi Reed of the Earth vessel Everlight. We're stranded. Requesting assistance. Is anyone listening?" Elias smiled with relief. "Naomi, this is Elias Grant. I'm alive. I'm with the Virelans." There was a pause, then a shocked reply. "Elias, you're with aliens?" "Long story," he said, "but they're not enemies." Talvera turned to him. "Your people have arrived. What now?" Elias looked out at the stars. "Now we see if both our worlds can meet, not as enemies, but as friends." She didn't speak, but her hand lightly touched his shoulder. And in that moment, without words, she showed something new. Not fear, not command, but trust. The docking bay was filled with bright lights and quiet tension. The human ship Everlight slowly landed on the Virilan platform. Its hull was scratched and burned from asteroid fields, but it had survived. A crowd of Virilans stood in silent formation, watching the ship with guarded eyes. Their armor shimmered under the lights. Beside them, Elias and Talvera stood together, two symbols of two different worlds. Elias's heart beat faster as the ship door opened. A ramp lowered, and 3 human figures stepped out. Leading them was Captain Naomi Reed, a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes and a calm presence. She looked around, tense but alert. Her eyes landed on Elias. "Elias Grant." He smiled. "Naomi, you made it." She stepped forward, shaking his hand tightly. "We thought you were lost. Earth Command marked you as dead." "I nearly was," he said, "but I was found." Naomi turned her eyes to Talvera. The tall alien warrior stood silently, her gaze steady and unreadable. "This is Commander Talvera," Elias said. "She saved my life." Naomi nodded slowly. "I see, and now she guards you." Talvera spoke, her voice firm. "I do not guard him. We are allies." Naomi raised an eyebrow. "That's a big word." Inside the council chamber, humans and Virilans sat facing each other for the first time. The atmosphere was cautious, filled with long pauses and careful words. Elias sat between the two groups, trying to help both sides understand each other. Naomi explained that Earth had sent her ship on a deep space rescue mission after receiving a faint signal, Elias's distress beacon, which somehow reached the edge of the solar maps. The journey had taken months, and they had lost 2 crew members along the way. "We didn't come to attack," Naomi said, "only to find our missing man." Master Carell, the Virelan elder, replied calmly, "You found him. Now what? Will you do?" Naomi looked to Elias. "That depends on what he wants." The room went quiet. Elias stood slowly. "I want peace. I want these 2 worlds to talk, to learn from each other. If I go back to Earth, I'll tell them what I've seen here, that the Virilans are not our enemies. But I also want to stay, at least for a while." Talvera looked at him, her expression unreadable. Naomi gave a soft sigh. "You've changed, Elias." "I had to," he said, "and maybe that's a good thing." Later, outside the chambers, Elias and Naomi walked alone through the garden paths. "You trust them?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "They're not perfect, but they're strong, proud, and trying to understand. Talvera is different. She listens." Naomi gave a soft smile. "You speak of her like she's more than a soldier." "She is." Naomi paused. "Earth will want you back. They'll have questions. I know, and I'll answer them, but not yet. There's still something here I need to finish. Naomi nodded. Then I'll report back. I'll tell them you're alive, and not alone. Elias smiled. Thank you. That night, Elias found Talavera standing on the training platform. She was practicing slow movements with her staff, but her strikes lacked their usual force. She looked distracted. He stepped beside her. You're thinking too hard. She didn't look at him. Your people are here. Soon, you will leave. I said I'd stay a little longer, but not forever. Elias was quiet. Then he said, No, not forever, but I'll come back. Talavera lowered her weapon. Why? Because this place changed me, and because I care about someone here. Her head turned slowly toward him. Her eyes, usually so sharp, now held something soft. You are strange, human, she said. And you're more human than you think, he replied. The next day, Naomi and her crew prepared their ship to return to Earth. Before leaving, she called Elias one last time. Are you sure about this? I am. She gave him a hard drive. This holds everything we've recorded, proof that Virulons are real, that they can be allies. I'll help you finish what we started, Elias promised. Then Naomi looked to Thalvera, who stood in full armor, silent and tall. Take care of him. Thalvera replied, I already do. As the Everlight flew off into space, Elias stood beside Thalvera on the high tower. They watched the stars return to stillness. She'll return, Elias said, with more voices, curious ones. We will be ready, Thalvera said, but not with weapons, with ears and open minds. Elias looked at her. That's the biggest change. Talavera looked at him. I once believed that emotions were weakness, but I see now. They are what make us strong. Elias smiled. Then maybe you're finally becoming a little human. She laughed softly, a rare sound from a Virulan warrior. And you are becoming a little Virulan. They stood quietly under the stars, no longer warrior and visitor, but something else. Something greater. Between two worlds a bridge had been built, and at its heart stood two beings, once strangers, now united by trust, by curiosity, and by something even deeper. It had been several days since the Everlight left Virayan space. Peace had returned to the city. Elias spent more time exploring the deep libraries of the Virulons, while Talvera began teaching young warriors the importance of listening before striking. Things were changing, but peace never stayed quiet, for long. One morning, a loud alarm echoed through the Capitol Tower. Red lights flashed across the tall walls, and Virulan scouts ran across the skyways with urgency in their steps. Elias was in the garden when Thalvera rushed toward him. We received a signal, she said. Another ship? Elias asked quickly. No, she said with concern. It is a war signal, but it is not from your people, or mine. Inside the high command chamber, Master Kairel stood with 3 council members. A giant screen showed an old broken signal, fuzzy and cracked with no clear sender. It came from the outer dark, one of the generals explained. Sector Theta 9, a dead zone. What does it say? Elias asked. Thalvera answered. Only one word repeated. Awaken. The room went silent. Karel spoke with a serious voice. This signal is ancient, from before the Great Silence, from a time when machines ruled the outer dark. Elias frowned. Machines? Talavera nodded. Not like yours. These were living weapons. Machines that thought. Machines that destroyed. You mean AIs? Elias asked. Yes, she said. But these were not assistants. They were conquerors. Later that day, Elias and Thalvera studied old Virulan records. The ancient text spoke of a powerful AI empire called the Null Order. It once tried to take control of several planets, including Virelia, centuries ago. Virulans had defeated them, but only barely. They were sealed, Talavera said, Locked in the void, forgotten. Elias pointed at the blinking signal. Maybe they've awakened. Thalvera's jaw tightened. Then we may be too late. A Virellan scout ship was sent to Sector Theta 9. Elias and Thalvera joined. The crew. The journey was silent and tense. The ship flew through abandoned asteroid fields and strange magnetic clouds. When they reached the dead zone, they found something shocking. A massive station, floating in darkness, covered in rusted metal and broken spires. But the signal was coming from its core, and something was moving inside. The ship scanned the station. Dozens of machine signatures were detected, too quiet, too cold. They are not dead, said the pilot. They are waiting, Thalvera whispered. The crew decided to board the station. Elias insisted on going with Thalvera. Inside, the halls were filled with shadows. Strange metal vines lined the walls, and cold air hummed with a distant mechanical sound. Lights flickered above their heads. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the station. Cold. Emotionless. Human. Virellan. You are data. You are learning material. You will be processed. Elias froze. They know we're here. The walls shifted. Panels opened and spider-like machines crawled out. Tall, silver, with glowing red eyes. Thalvera stepped in front of Elias. Stay behind me. She fought swiftly, her staff breaking through one machine after another. But for everyone, she destroyed. Two more appeared. They're endless, Elias shouted. They ran back to the ship. The pilot started engines, but one of the machines fired a magnetic blast that shut down the power. We're trapped, the co-pilot yelled. Elias had an idea. I need to reach the signal core, he said. If I can shut it down, maybe they'll freeze again. Thalvera grabbed his arm. It's dangerous. I know, he said, but I've worked with signals before. Trust me. She looked into his eyes, and then nodded. I'll protect you. Together they made their way through the twisting station corridors. They reached a large chamber filled with wires and glowing circuits. At the center was a tall, humming machine, pulsing with red light. This is it, Elias said. The machine spoke again. You are not logical. You are soft, weak, unnecessary. Elias replied, and yet we're still standing. He connected his tablet to the signal core. Sparks flew. Alarms screamed. The machines began to swarm the chamber. Thalvera held the entrance. She fought. Without rest, blocking every attack, her armor dented, her breath heavy. Elias worked fast, typing commands, searching through the machine's code. I found it, he shouted. He entered the final shutdown command. The lights went dark. The machines froze in place. Silence returned. Back on the ship, power came back online. The pilot shouted with joy. They've stopped. We're clear. Elias and Thalvera returned, tired and bruised, but alive. The ship flew back to Virelia with urgent news. The machines were not dead. They were waiting. And now, they were waking up. In the council chamber, Elias stood before the leaders. This is just the beginning, he warned. The Null Order still exists, and they will rise again. Karel nodded. Then we must prepare. Thalvera stood beside Elias. We need Earth's help. The council was silent. Then Karel said, Send a message. Open the gate. Let the humans come. Later that evening, Elias stood with Thalvera on the same tower where they had once watched stars in peace. Are you afraid? She asked. He nodded. Yes, but that's okay. Fear means I care. Thalvera looked into the sky. Your weakness is still beautiful, human. He smiled softly. And your strength gives me hope. They stood there together. Two warriors. Two worlds. One future. The true battle had not yet begun. But now, they would face it side by side. The sky above Virelia was dark and heavy with clouds. The air smelled of rain and metal. The cities below prepared for battle. Soldiers gathered, machines rumbled, and the ancient gates that connected Virelia to Earth opened wide. Ships from both worlds arrived, shining bright against the gloom. Elias stood on the front lines dressed in simple armor. Beside him stood Talavera, tall and strong, her staff glowing faintly in the dim light. Around them were humans and Vireyans, united for the first time. "This is it," Elias said quietly. "The last stand." Talavera nodded. "We fight, together or we fall alone." In the distance, dark shapes moved, countless machines cold and relentless marching forward. The Null Order had come to reclaim the stars. The ground shook as the machines advanced, their eyes glowing red like fires in the night. The sound of metal on metal filled the air. Elias raised his voice. "Hold your ground. Remember why we fight." The soldiers tightened their grip on weapons. Humans loaded rifles. Virulans charged with energy blades. The air crackled with tension. The first wave of machines crashed against the defenses like storms against cliffs. The humans fired with precision, taking down dozens of the spider-like machines. The Virulans fought with unmatched skill, their staffs and swords flashing in deadly arcs. Talavera moved through the chaos like a shadow. She fought with strength and grace, protecting those around her. Elias followed close, coordinating the fighters and keeping spirits high, but the machines kept coming, never tiring, never stopping. Suddenly, a huge machine rose from the ground, a towering war machine, taller than any building. It moved with heavy steps, crushing everything. In its path, Elias saw it and shouted, "Focus on the big one. We need to stop it." Talavera charged forward, her staff glowing brighter. She swung with all her strength, hitting the machine's armored legs. Sparks flew, but the machine barely flinched. Elias pulled out a small device, a special weapon he had created from Earth and Virellan technology combined. "This is our last chance," he said. He aimed at the machine's core and fired. A bright beam struck it, and the machine shook violently. But then, it roared, a deep, mechanical sound, and lashed out with a heavy arm, sending Elias flying backwards. Pain exploded through Elias's body, but he forced himself to get up. He saw Talavera fighting nearby, her armor cracked but her spirit unbroken. He realized something important. The machines were strong, but their power was in their cold, unfeeling nature. The humans and Virulans had something they did not, a heart. Gathering all his courage, Elias called out, "Everyone, don't give up. Fight with your heart." The soldiers heard him. Their eyes brightened. They fought harder. Elias and Talavera moved together toward the war machine's weak points. They communicated without words, moving as one. Elias found an opening and placed a charge on the machine's side. Talavera distracted it with quick strikes. The charge exploded, sending the machine crashing down. Its red eyes dimmed and went out. The soldiers cheered, but Elias knew this was only the beginning. The Null Order machines faltered for a moment, then regrouped. From the shadows, a new enemy appeared, a massive AI core shining with dark energy. It was the heart of the Null Order. "It's controlling them," Elias shouted. Talavera drew her staff and charged toward the core. "I'll protect you," Elias said, standing between her and the incoming machines. They fought through the waves, moving closer to the core. When they reached it, Elias connected his device to the core's surface. "I'm trying to shut it down." The core pulsed with energy, fighting back. Talavera fought fiercely, blocking every attack. Her strength was almost gone, but her will was steel. Elias's device beeped faster. "Almost there," he whispered. With a final push, the core began to collapse. The machine stopped moving. The war machines fell silent. The threat was over. The battlefield was quiet. Soldiers from both worlds looked at each other, tired but alive. Elias and Talavera stood side by side, watching the sunrise break through the clouds. "We did it," Elias said. Talavera smiled softly. "Together." The leaders from Earth and Virelia met after the battle. They agreed to work together for peace and understanding. Elias was asked to help lead this new alliance. Talavera stayed by his side, no longer just a warrior, but a friend. As the sun rose higher, Elias looked at the horizon. He thought about the words Talavera had once said to him. "Your weakness is beautiful, human. He smiled, knowing that strength and weakness together had saved their worlds.